A new optimism is sweeping across our land, and a new faith in America is filling our hearts and lifting our sights.
Donald Trump striking a hopeful tone during remarks earlier today, but the president running up against some fierce resistance in his first 100 days in office. And with that marker quickly approaching, reports swirl of a White House on edge, furiously working to craft a compelling narrative about his first weeks in office. Aides reportedly convinced that defining this period as a true success will set up the presidency for the remaining 3.5 years. Here now to discuss a true White House insider, Karl Rove, former senior advisor and deputy chief of staff under President George W. Bush. Good to see you, Karl. First, let me ask you about the premise to this, that it's essential to come up with this narrative to paint the first days in office as a success because that defines the rest of his term. Is that
well,
true?
Half true. It's important to define this period. The press is sort of stuck on 100 days. Really hasn't been important, really in reality, since Franklin Roosevelt's 100 days of legislation. But every new president gets judged for the first 100 days. So, yes, it's important to have a narrative, an explanation of what that is. But don't count on it sustaining the next nearly 3 3/4 years. That doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. You constantly have to figure out how to explain to the American people what have we just been doing and what is it that we're going to be doing in the future.
Perhaps you can lend them a hand.
So this is a constant exercise.
I mean, you're a pro at this, and one White House official in Politico says 100 days is the marker. We've essentially got 2.5 weeks to turn things around. This is going to be a monumental task. I mean, apparently they're meeting 30 Trump staffers or piling into conference rooms. What is the path forward? How can you help them come up with a narrative?
First of all, they've got a nice construct. Now, fleshing it out matters, but they said, let's emphasize prosperity. What have we done to increase jobs, increase economic growth, relieve businesses and individuals of regulations that are keeping them from making more money and growing our economy? Accountability. Let's talk about us following through on what we said during the campaign. Put in a rule for lobbying, appoint a Supreme Court justice. And finally, safety and security. What have we done to make America more safe and secure? So not a bad construct. You can talk about these things all day long. And believe me, inside a White House, you do talk about these things a lot. But that seems to be a pretty good construct. But you pointed your finger at something that's really important. In that Politico story, 6 people out of those 30 went out and talked to the press. Three of them dissed the process, and 2 others, there may have been 2 others that dissed it, or maybe they were quoting some of these same 3 people twice, and 1 person defended the process. Did these 5 people really think they were doing the President of the United States a favor by doing it? And then the quote that you had of somebody saying, well, we got 100 days, we define it, it's going to be monumental. Did they think they were helping President Trump out by that comment?
Well, yeah, maybe that's part of the problem.
Disloyalty is amazing.
Yeah, maybe that's part of the problem. So here's what that communications team is putting together. They're dividing this up into 3 categories of accomplishments, which you hinted that's the way to go. They've got prosperity, such as new manufacturing jobs that they can tout, etc. Accountability, following through on the swamp draining campaign that was promised, and safety, security. What do you think? Are they on the right path there, Karl?
I think look, there are a dozen different ways to cut this, but you got to come up with a construct. They've come up with a construct. Now they got to flesh it out. They got to explain it, make it concise so people can get their hands around it. So people say, well, you know what? He is doing what he said he would do, and he's focused on my jobs and economy and keeping America safe.
All right.
But they got to prove it, and he's got to be the guy who helps prove it to them.
They've got to sell it, to your point. All right. One other thing I wanted to ask you about. Fox has been reporting on this Kushner-Bannon relationship, that things are apparently on edge. Bannon, of course, this chief strategist in the Trump campaign, and Kushner, his son-in-law, but also his senior advisor. Apparently there's some infighting that is being reported on. Is there anything to this brawl that's being reported on?
Well, you almost have to think there is, because in the Politico story, they quote a White House official defending Bannon and a White House official defending Kushner. So, I mean, and going at the other side. So, and we've seen this constantly. Last week, I think I counted in one story 9 different people in the White House taking whacks at other people in the White House. There seem to be 3 tribes. There is the Kushner tribe of New Yorkers and their followers. There's the Bannon neo-populist, neo-nationalist of Steve Bannon and Steve Miller and their people and their followers, and then there's everybody else, and they take whacks at each other. I don't think I've seen a White House going back at least the last 5 presidents in which there's been as much evident infighting that spills out into the press. These people have no loyalty to the man they serve. They're not doing him any good by doing this.
Well, other reporting, Fox reporting reveals that they get along. They just have differences philosophically. It's more philosophical than personal.
And you want that. And you want that. You want disagreements over policy, but you want a unity of purpose that keeps this from spilling into the papers and into the media with stories of how those other guys are complete idiots and we're the only true keepers of the Trump flame, or these people are incompetent and we're the only competent people around. I mean, none of that serves the president well.
Back to your point, it's about controlling that narrative. All right, Karl Rove, thanks for being here.